deciding on whether or not to have kids, get a pet, or neither. It's a decision that's going to have to be made at some point in your life, especially as you cross that threshold over 25. Once you pass your mid-20s and you get into your 30s and 40s, everyone has to make a decision. Are kids something they want? Is a pet something they want? Or do they want neither? I don't want to talk on, do you need to get married, or, can you just do it with a boyfriend or girlfriend? You know what I mean? I did a separate video on should you get married or should you stay single? Because the question on what I'm speaking of is kids, pet, or neither is regarding a level of companionship. Deciding whether or not to be single or get married is a level of intimacy for your personal relationship. Deciding on whether you want kids, a pet, or neither is a decision of personal responsibility. Okay? A relationship, a lover, a husband, a wife, that's intimacy. That's deciding you want to be intimate with another human being at the top level. Deciding if you want a kid or pet is a level of caretaking, which is responsibility. Two different things. But it's a decision that is going to come upon you at some point in your life. Especially more so and more urgently for women. Because women have a biological clock. Meaning that for their physical being to produce a child, they have a certain time window within their lifespan that they either have to make that decision, decide to have a child or not. And men have that same decision. But their lifespan of being able to create a child, as far as the participation of creating a child, is basically the span of their entire life. So there's a different level of urgency depending on if you're male or female. So I'll leave that perspective based on you, and obviously if you are male or female, you're going to have a different perspective, but that needs to be understood, that's the reason that a man may have a different perspective than a female, because there's different things to consider. Women have a tighter time frame to make it happen, and men have a longer time frame to make it happen. But let's take it one at a time. Having a child versus, or compared to having a pet. Because again, these are caretaker responsibilities, and these are really the only two major forms of companionship. Intimacy is a relationship, it's a lover, it's a marriage. As far as companionship from a caretaker perspective, it's either child or pet. So to have a child, the number one thing you would have to ask yourself, because it's a personal decision, excuse the horn, it's a personal decision based on what you want for your life. Not for me, I'm just sharing on the topic and sharing my thoughts. Regarding kids, if you decide you want a kid for your life, the number one thing you have to accept that you are signing up for is worry. My mother always told me, she had 3 children, that once you become a parent, worry never leaves your soul. You will add an extra level of worry on your soul to the day you leave this earth. I personally have never had a child, but I did have a pet. And I say that because I can appreciate her perspective, but only after I had a pet for over a decade, because that pet was like my child. And I relate to my mom in what she was saying about that worry, because I would find that when I was at work, I would be worrying that my dog is okay. Is it too hot in the room? Is she eating well? Is she okay? Is she feeling lonely? Later on in her years, when technology advanced, I got a webcam and I would watch her on that. But I'd still worry. The webcam helped me check in on her and feel a little bit more at peace, but you still worry. And then when I had got physically sick and when I was in the hospital, you know what I thought about? I didn't think about, bills. I didn't think about life goals. When I was in the hospital and I didn't know if I would have to stay there for an extended period of time, I thought, who's going to take care of my pet? That was the number one worry on my soul. So I can only imagine, or it could be the same thing for a parent. For a parent about their child, everything in life you do, you go to work, you're going to worry more. You got to go to the hospital, God forbid, you're going to worry more. And it ain't going to be about yourself, it's going to be about your child. So either way, a pet or a child, adding that level of responsibility, you sign up for worry. It's a greater level of worry for a child if you decide to have a child, because you basically sign up for a level of worry till either the day you die or that, God forbid, the day they die before you. For if you decide that you don't want a child and you rather just have a pet as a companion, and a lot of people start off, well, I'll have a pet as a form of a child and then it'll grow from there if I decide. If you decide to have a pet, you know, you're not signing up for a lifetime of worry, but what you are, because your pet's not, you know, 90% of the time when you buy a pet, you are going to live longer than your pet, because an average pet life expectancy is 10 to 15 years. So you know, when you decide to have a pet, you don't have to worry the rest of your life, but you're signing up for automatic grief. You sign up for, in 10 to 15 years, you're going to experience the loss of that pet, and you're going to have to experience grieving. For me, it was like grieving a child. And scars, even to this day, are still on my soul 3 years later. Now, don't want to be all negative, because you are adding a lot of love to your life. It is true. It's not just a freaking saying that, you know, child as love. It is. No. There's good and bad and everything, but there is a lot of love and beautiful moments in life. I can only speak somewhat as far as from the having a child perspective, because I have to share, I've never had a child. I had a pet. So it was like my child. So I can relate in some aspect, but you need to understand this is my perspective. And having that pet, it added a tremendous amount of love and joy to my life that without having that pet, I would have never known. It's another dimension. It's another dimension of love. And I would, it's very similar, if not more, for a child, but to me, same thing from my perspective. You have your own. So you're taking some losses, all right? You're taking the loss that you sign up for worry. To the day you die, you sign up for worry. If you have a child, if you have a pet, you sign up for, you know you're going to be grieving the loss of a loved one in 10 to 15 years. It's guaranteed. It's not, you know. So you have to decide, you know, which one of those will possibly work for you. What having a pet did for me, I had moved out on my own, and I didn't get into any heavy-duty relationships, so I needed companionship to, you know, something missing. There was something missing. I needed companionship. So the intimacy as far as a woman and all that stuff was a separate thing. This was more on a companionship level. Again, lover relationship is intimacy, companionship, pet, child, you know, in that type of framework. But what I learned, my number one lesson from having a pet, was that I learned the level of responsibility caring for another living being. And it's a beautiful dimension, another dimension of love that you will never experience in any other way. I don't care how much money you get, how successful you are in your career, how much you travel. It's beautiful. And beautiful. But the negative is, you know that pet is going to pass away. You know you're going to have to worry more because you're caring for another living being. And one of my biggest failures is I failed towards the end of my dog's life. So the hardest time in my experience with my dog was in the beginning, the first year or two, because the dog had so much energy and I was still trying to adjust my life, okay? Because that's the other thing about this conversation. When you have a pet or when you have a child, you have to adjust some of your habits and routines. Some of the selfish things, and not selfish from the standpoint of evil, but just some of the things that you're used to doing on a daily basis for you, they now get a little bit to the back burner because there's a sacrifice there. You go to the gym every day, you have a pet or child, that's not going to be the case anymore. There's a sacrifice there. And it's a good sacrifice because it's for something you want, but you just need to be mindful of that. So the first couple years were the hardest for me for having a pet because I had to adjust to that sacrifice. And especially the first couple months, I wasn't ready. You know, you're not ready until you get hit in the face. You know, you have to adjust to that. And so I even let my dog stay with my mom for a couple months while I got my head around it. And then I got my head around it. And then I really embraced it, and it was a great journey. I went through a couple carpets in the beginning of the journey, and that was, like I said, very frustrating. Almost gave my dog away in the first couple of years because I couldn't take the extra responsibility. I thank God I didn't. I thank God I stayed the course. After that, after we settled into a routine, from ages 3 to 8.5, 9, to ages 3 to 9, beautiful times. Always a little downside, but beautiful, beautiful, beautiful times. Some of the best times of my life. Towards the end of her life, the last year and a half, bad times. Because I knew my dog was getting closer to her life expectancy. Her walking capability had slowed down. I'm still in my 30s, so I still have energy levels. She doesn't have energy level. A different level of caretaking is required for the elderly. And I failed at times because I came home from work and I got all the burdens of my job and of life for my own personal self. And then you have to carry another level of burdens when you have a pet at an elderly age. Same thing for when you're caring for an elderly human. Because they just can't do for themselves the thing they once could. They can't hold their bathroom in as long as they once could. And same thing when they're young. When they're young, they can't hold their bathroom in. When they're young and when they're very old are the two hardest parts from my experience in having a dog. And some days I wish I would have been a little bit more patient with my dog. And I felt very guilty after my dog passed. That damn, why was I so upset that day? And I got frustrated because she pissed in the house. She was just older and couldn't hold it in. But you're gonna go. So I want to expose that you're gonna go through failures, whether you decide to have a child or whether you decide to have a pet. All of us do. I don't care. So ultimately, like everything in life, the decision is yours. Not your parents' decision, not your friend's decision, not your pastor, not your friend, not your mentor, not a YouTube creator. It's your decision. It's your life. There's negatives to both, but there's beautiful blessings to both. If you decide to care for another being, child or dog, you are going to add a level of worry to your life and another level of responsibility. Your child doesn't owe you anything. You don't have a child so they can tend your farm and take care of your house and mow your lawn. Nope. Your child didn't ask to be born. You decide to have it. So don't put that burden on your child. And after 18, they should be able to go free and do what they want and create their own life for them. If you have a dog, if you decide to have a pet, some type of pet, you got to clean up their shit. You have to be patient with them, and if you fail, you have to just clean up their garbage. And you have to realize you're going to mess up some stuff in your house. Your house is going to be a little bit dirtier than it once was when you were single. You're not going to be able to go to the gym every day. You're going to make some sacrifices, but you're going to experience unconditional love. You're going to have somebody to cuddle with you at night, and it brings a level of tenderness to your soul that even the hardest of person, it's a blessing. These are my thoughts on having a child or having a pet, maybe having both, or maybe having neither. The final thing I'll close on, if you had neither, you would never have a level of worry, and you would never have a level of a burden as far as financially or as far as stress or grief, but you may not experience that other dimension of love. But that may be okay for you. So one thing I don't want to do is talk you into having one or the other, and then you'd be resentful. At this point, I don't think I would ever have another pet. I don't want to go through that whole process. I don't want to sign up for that whole process, even though it's a beautiful thing. I don't want kids as far as the eye can see, so that I won't sign up for. Everybody's different, but I want to share my journey. So the final thought is, no matter what you decide for your life, know that you will fail. And above all else, unconditional love is learned when we fail as a parent or as a pet caretaker, or in any aspect of caring for another living being. We fail because we're human. And it will teach you love, compassion, and grace. And that we also need that grace, from our Heavenly Father. That's how I say it. I'm saying? From God. We need grace from God. You don't have to believe that, but I believe that. When I failed as a caretaker, that's what I believed. Just, oh shit. I failed. I need grace. As much as I love, I'm probably one of the most loving people out there. And I still have my moments where I say, oh shit, I could have, I wasn't the most loving caretaker I could have been. So that's That's my number one takeaway, is you will experience great things, but you also fail, but you will come to understand the need for grace. And whatever you decide, be you, do you. If you fall, get up, push forward, stay encouraged, and stay inspired.